How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC 311, Makhachev vs. Moicano on January 18th, 2025. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 13. We start with Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. I'm going to go with the underdog on this one. I'm going to go with Clayton Carpenter. And again, this is another pick that could bite me in the ass. I made a couple of those last week. Didn't pay off, but I think that this one actually can. Tagir Ulanbekov, listen, he's a very solid fighter. He's very good. I personally believe that he has a very terrible weight cut every single time he cuts weight. He's very big. They have him listed as 5'7". I don't think he's 5'7". I think this dude's more like 5'9". He's pretty close in height with Islam Makhachev, so... But again, that also has its downfalls, especially at a weight class like flyweight. He's 33 years old. He's not slow, but he's telegraphed, if you know what I mean. You know when he's throwing a jab, you know when he's throwing a straight punch. He has a decent teep to the body. He'll throw a front kick here and there. That's usually what his offense is. Clayton Carpenter is still a little green, I will say, in the striking. He does kind of leave his chin open, but he's got a chin on him. I think Tagir Ulanbekov is just a chin waiting to happen. I think he's going to get chinned eventually. Tim Elliott hit him with one of the wildest overhand lefts I've seen in my life because his overhand right defense, he keeps his hands by his chin, but he does that even when people throw at his temple, which is why he got knocked down by Tim Elliott. His striking defense is still a little subpar, in my opinion, especially when you go over the top instead of right down the middle. If you try and hit him in his jaw, he'll probably block it because that's where Tagir's hands usually are. If you throw a bit over the top, I think you're going to clip him. And that's really all Clayton Carpenter throws is those over the head and then uppercuts down the middle and then those hooks in the pocket. I think this is going to be kind of a jab battle for a little bit. I don't know if Clayton Carpenter is going to be able to ragdoll Tagir. I don't think he will. I think the grappling will be very, very interesting because... even Cody Durden, when he was hurt, was able to out-scramble Tagir Ulanbekov for a couple seconds and find top position. That's a guy that just got concussed with a straight right to the jaw and got knocked down. He was able to take down Tagir Ulanbekov. I think Tagir's a little awkward. I think he's, he only fights once a year. This dude... People talk about that Tim Elliott fight it was ages ago. That was in 2022. He's only had 2 fights since then. He literally skipped the entire of 2024. He missed weight terribly against Joshua Van. I honestly think if there's a fight that won't happen come Saturday due to weigh-ins, it'll be this one because I think Tagir Ulanbekov has a solid chance of missing weight again. But I also... both of these guys, people talk about Tagir Ulanbekov, his resume isn't even that crazy if you really look at it. Bruno Silva in 2020... I mean, that isn't Bruno Silva now. He went to a split decision with Ailín Nascimento, loses to Tim Elliott, very close fight. Nate Maness and then Cody Durden. I've seen these guys all get bested before. Clayton Carpenter, undefeated, 8-0, has some star on him. He's very strong, very powerful, hits pretty hard, I imagine. Is able to push a pace. I think Tagir Ulanbekov will slow down egregiously as this fight goes on. And Clayton Carpenter, maybe he does as well, but I think Clayton Carpenter has a bit more dog in him, and I like that a little bit in this matchup, especially where I think a lot of grappling is going to be happening. And Tagir Ulanbekov, he's a bit taller, a bit bigger. I think Clayton Carpenter has more muscle mass, though. I think he's a bit stronger. I think he'll be able to win certain positions just with pure strength and athleticism. So I'll go Clayton Carpenter just... based on a couple of outside factors, but also in the octagon, I think Tagir Ulanbekov does make some small mistakes. We move to Ricky Turcios versus Benardo Sopaj. I'm going to go with Benardo Sopaj. Again, this is a rebooked matchup. I originally picked Benardo Sopaj, and my pick is not changing. In fact, I'm a bit more confident because Ricky Turcios was injured after cutting weight last time. To kind of sum up, because I don't want to eat too much time up with this fight, I think Ricky Turcios' takedown defense is kind of poop. Benardo Sopaj has decent control on the ground. He times his takedowns well. We saw that against Vinicius Oliveira. Give him a full camp. I don't know if he's able to control Vinicius for the entirety of the second round as well. That first round, he did very well in the first round against Vinicius, and y'all know how I feel about Vinicius Oliveira. That's the homie. And we just saw Vinicius Oliveira stuff a bunch of takedowns by Ricky Simón, who I think is infinitely better than Ricky Turcios. Ricky Turcios has little to no finishing potential. Benardo Sopaj is younger. He's hungrier, I imagine. Ricky Turcios kind of just throws to throw sometimes. If you want to see a fight where a guy literally does nothing, watch his fight against Aimon Zahabi. It is one of the weirdest performances I've ever seen. I don't think Ricky Turcios cares enough. I think Benardo will rack up the first 2 rounds, maybe slow down again in the third, kind of like we did against Vinicius, but a little later. And then I think Ricky Turcios, maybe he volumes him a little bit in the third round, but it'll be like little rabbit punches. But yeah, I'll go Benardo Sopaj. Unanimous decision, 29-28 at worst, but I think it'll still be 30-27. We move to Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafurov. I'll go with Rinya Nakamura. Muin is alright. I think he'll have a bit of advantage on the feet. Rinya, of course, very high-level wrestler, very explosive on the feet. Reminds me of a less evolved, like, Jacoby Smith a little bit with his striking. He's super explosive and powerful, but his technique isn't the best. Of course, Rinya's kind of had a weird career so far. He's kind of wrestle-fucked and kind of just smudged Carlos Vera and then Fernie Garcia, I believe. But then, of course, his debut, Toshiomi Kazama, he knocked out in like 30 seconds. Muin Gafurov has also kind of had a weird stint. Of course, 1 and 2 in the UFC. He got beat by John Castaneda and Kwang Ho Kong, or Saeed Nurmagomedov. His one win over Kwang Ho Kong is all right, I guess. But I'm going to pick Rinya because the fact that a guy like John Castaneda and Kwang Ho Kong are able to take you down, no, I'm not a huge fan of that, especially going up against Rinya Nakamura, who is one of the most decorated wrestlers to probably come into the bantamweight division, who is very strong, very athletic, and also has the power advantage on the feet. Now, Muin will have the technique advantage. He'll probably be throwing a lot of low kicks, I imagine, because Rinya is kind of in a wider-based stance. But I think Rinya is going to catch on to that and probably wrestle Muin Gafurov and take him down based on the kicks. And also, Muin is also getting reversed by Kwang Ho Kong. I remember that Kwang Ho Kong kind of just stood up and then got his back. It was one of the weirdest things ever. Also, Muin Gafurov is incredibly hairy in one spot on his back. I'm never going to pick you to win because you don't know how to fucking cut the hair on your back, bro. Grab some shears and chop that shit off. It's gross. Nobody likes it. But yeah, Rinya Nakamura, wrestling advantage, power advantage. Muin will probably land some stuff on the feet in the early goings, get caught, get his kick caught, or just throw a spinning kick, because that's something that Muin Gafurov does, is throw spinning heel kicks, and that was something that Carlos Vera did a couple times, or maybe he did it only in the first round, and then Rinya immediately got his back and took him down. And I don't think Muin has the jiu-jitsu threat of a Carlos Vera, so I think that Rinya will actually get some shots off. I think Rinya will win a unanimous decision 30-27. We move to Karol Rosa versus Ailín Pérez. I want to pick Karol Rosa, but I'll pick Ailín Pérez. Another underdog. Listen, I'm taking some chances on this card, yo. Yo, bitch, I'm taking some chances. I think Ailín Pérez, unironically, has decent cardio. And she, that's kind of base take. I think that she can wear down Karol Rosa and possibly smudge her way to win these first 2 rounds and maybe throw away the third. Because, listen, Karol Rosa is going to chew her up on the feet for quite some time. I think Karol Rosa's leg kicks are some of the most brutal in WMMA. She's got very dangerous low kicks, and that sets up her hands as well, because she's able to land the jabs off of feinting the low kicks. I think Ailín Pérez, though, is decent enough, and she moves around a lot. She's very mobile and she's like Merab almost, not with the cardio, as I mentioned earlier, but the way that she's constantly in and out like this, she'll never really be in kicking range unless she wants to be. She'll usually be kind of far out or way too in for you to low kick. And I think of Karol Rosa, which she does sometimes do, is low kick very close in boxing range, pocket boxing range. I think Ailín Pérez can shoot a takedown and possibly smudge her against the fence near to the thigh, kind of make it a slower type of paced fight. I think if Ailín Pérez tries to strike with Karol Rosa, I think it will be a bad night for her. I think if Ailín Pérez goes for a smudge-style slop fest that a lot of people would assume, then I think she can win this fight. I think that's how she will try to win this fight. Also, I will say, Ailín Pérez usually fights tall women. This is like the first time in a while since the Stephanie Egger fight, which she did lose. That was also 2 years ago and some change. She's fighting 5'8", 5'8", 5'8", 5'9" women, very tall women for women's bantamweight. This is like the first time in a while that she's fighting someone that's actually as tall as her, and she was able to take down the bigger girls, which I favor that a lot. I think that's very, very good, because it is kind of hard to take down taller people. It's kind of like taking down a ladder, especially the way Ailín Pérez takes them down, like going as low as she does. I think Ailín Pérez can get low on Karol Rosa. I don't think she'll finish Karol, because the thing about Karol Rosa is she doesn't really have a lot of finishing potential, even though she lands a lot. She only has like 4 finishes in her entire she has 6, to be fair, 4 KOs, 2 submissions. But she also has 2 submission losses. Who subbed her, though? Who are we talking about? Who subbed her? Melissa Gatto. Really? Melissa Gatto and Larissa Pacheco? That's the girl that Kayla Harrison lost to. Well, it's not bad people to get subbed by, I guess. But also, she's been doing this shit for a while. Damn, Karol Rosa has been doing this shit since she was like 17. Holy fuck. She's got a lot of experience. Maybe my pick will turn bad, but I think Ailín Pérez can win by making it up. We move to Grant Dawson versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Man, a CDF pick would be really funny. I'll pick Grant Dawson, though. I think this is a tricky fight for Grant Dawson, though, to be fair. Carlos Diego Ferreira, even though he'll be 40 on the night of the fight, he'll be a birthday boy on the night, January 18th. Happy birthday to Carlos Diego Ferreira. Sorry, I'm not picking you. But Carlos is a crafty fucking vet, man. He's grifty and crafty, dude. The Mateusz Rombeski fight is a huge example of that. Gets a lot of early damage. Gets a lot of damage early, gets knocked down in the first round, but he's also kind of doing well in that first round. Second round, he kind of, like, Mateusz just gasses out and he starts getting beat up and his eyes swell up. Carlos Diego Ferreira's one of his best attributes is his scramble ability in the first round. His ability to scramble in the early onslaught is very good. We saw that against against Gamrot. I think he did it pretty well against Gregor Gillespie as well, if I'm not mistaken. He went to a split decision with Beneil Dariush. You know what I mean? And Carlos is honestly very underrated as an MMA fighter, like career-wise. I think Carlos Diego Ferreira is very underrated. His striking has massively improved. He's able to throw up stuff. Grant Dawson, I feel, is just too young for him. I think he's too strong, and I think his chain wrestling and catch wrestling is very good. And even though Carlos Diego Ferreira's scrambling ability is very solid, like I said prior, I think Grant Dawson deals with scramblers very well. If you watch that Rafa Garcia fight, Rafa in the first takedown attempt initiates a scramble and kind of is bouncing on one leg, scrambles again, and then Grant Dawson ends up finally getting him against the fence and going for a double leg and scoops him down. I think Grant Dawson's control time when he announces, like he finally gets on top, is very good. That is something Grant Dawson is very good at, is top presence when he finally has your back on the canvas. Joe Solecki couldn't do anything to get up. Rafa Garcia, for example, struggled heavily on the ground, and Rafa Garcia is a very strong ball of meat. Carlos Diego Ferreira, I think, is too old, and I think he will slow down as the fight goes on. Grant Dawson, one of his better attributes as his career has gone on, is his cardio. That used to be a huge detriment in the earlier fights in his career, but as of now, his cardio is very solid. And of course, on the feet, there's always a chance that Grant Dawson gets clipped. We saw that in the Bobby Green fight. I don't think... Oh, shit, I dropped everything. I don't think that Carlos Diego Ferreira has that quick twitch ability. Oh, well, he did knock out Michael Johnson, to be fair. He does have the quick twitch ability, I guess, but when was that Michael Johnson fight? 2023? I mean, I guess he kind of does. But another thing is, Carlos Diego Ferreira has actually been finished by, like, ground and pound and ground strikes. Like, the Mateusz Gamrot, if I remember, was, like, a knee to his rib. And then the Gregor Gillespie fight ended with ground and pound. But I do think that the first round and a little bit of the second round will be very tricky for Grant Dawson. But as the fight goes on, I think Carlos Diego Ferreira will get tired and not be able to defend takedowns as well. Kind of just fade a little bit. Because he is old. He is old, to be fair. We move to Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elekana. I'll go with Bogdan Guskov. I think Billy Elekana, he's a bit too patient for my liking at light heavyweight. He's incredibly patient, kind of slower as well. I think Bogdan Guskov's just better. Also, the fact that Billy's taking this fight on short notice, and I don't believe he had a match. November 9th, what happened there? He withdrew from a fight in November. So, take that with a grain of salt, I guess. I think Bogdan is incredibly tricky to deal with, especially in your debut. Nonetheless, Bogdan has very weird angles he comes from. His hands are kind of low. Billy Elekana, if he was faster and, actually, like, threw stuff, he would be able to capitalize on that. But, Bogdan has fought some pretty quick guys like Ryan Spann, who is also very powerful. Volkan Oezdemir on short notice as well. Zach Pyonga, who is underratedly fast for light heavyweight. He's actually pretty quick on the feet. And he was able to evade those strikes and able to actually manage around them. I just personally think this is a terrible matchup for Billy Elekana. Bogdan is also kind of big. For light heavyweight, he's bigger than Billy. 6'3". Billy is, 6'2". I don't really think that this matchup ends well for Billy. I think his arsenal isn't good enough. He can maybe try and stink it up against the fence, I guess. Because people have done, like Zach Pyonga did that for about a minute against Bogdan in their fight. But I think in open space, Bogdan is just a little too fast for Billy Elekana, and I think he will end up chinning him. I think Chuck Campbell, at certain points in their fight, was landing pretty heavy on Billy against the fence, kind of pushing him back, because Billy allows himself to get pushed. So I think Bogdan will push him against the fence, kind of pressure him, land big, knock him out. Easy. We move to Zachary Reese versus Azamat Bekoev. I'll go with Zach Reese. I think he can TKO Azamat. This is a tough fight to predict because Azamat Bekoev, he's young, he's 18-3, got a lot of experience, has fought 5 rounds before, went to a decision with Dylan Budka. I watched that Dylan Budka fight. I'm going to be honest with you. Dylan Budka was outstriking this dude for a large majority of those early rounds until he got tired. If you want, go watch that fight. He even knocks down Azamat in the 3rd round. I'm not a huge fan of that because I think Dylan Budka's striking is not great at like a UFC level. We've seen that against Cesar Almeida and even like Andre Petroski. Zachary Reese is bigger than Dylan Budka. He hits harder than Dylan Budka, and he has a reach advantage over Dylan Budka. And Azamat Bekoev was having struggles on the feet against Dylan Budka, who has a very collegiate wrestler background. And Azamat, his striking, he's a bit loopy, kind of slow. They're both kind of slow, to be fair. Zachary Reese isn't slow because of technique. He's slow because of how big he is in a way. I think Zachary Reese can set down Azamat. One of those things that Dylan Budka was landing significantly on Azamat, and I've seen other people land on him, is a body kick. And Zachary Reese has a mean fucking body kick, and he kind of uses that to set up his uppercut. I think he did that against Julian Marquez. And Zachary Reese, even if it does get to the ground, he has very long limbs. He has great jiu-jitsu. Is he a black belt? I don't fucking know. He's kind of weird, Zachary Reese. He's a bit of a funky fella. 2 submission wins. He got a win on the Contender Series with an armbar. Yeah, I think Zachary Reese can manage on the feet, land some hard shots. Azamat is very open to straight shots and body kicks. His defense isn't the greatest. He kind of looks for counter shots, and that gets him caught himself. If it does come to a cardio battle, Azamat will win because Zachary Reese will gas out. Azamat has decent cardio. I've seen him go 5 rounds before. But I think Zachary Reese can finish this dude. Also short notice, on like a week's notice. You know what I mean? I don't think Azamat... Did Azamat have a fight booked in the future that got canceled because of this? No. He's kind of just coming off, a layoff. I don't know. I don't like it. We move to the featured prelim. Payton Talbott versus Raoni Barcelos. I'll go with Payton Talbott, the obvious pick. Raoni's old, 37 years old. This isn't even... I mean, I guess, is this his hardest test? I mean, we still don't really know about Cameron Simon. I guess Cameron hasn't really beat anybody of note in the UFC yet. His best win is Kevin Kozlow? I'm kidding. Manny Martinez. But Payton Talbott is just the better fighter in this case. Raoni, I've seen him get outstruck by Victor Henry on short notice, and no disrespect to Victor Henry, of course, but I think Payton Talbott's a superior striker to him. Also, what is Raoni's takedown defense? 85? Yeah, Payton's not going to be able to crazy out-grapple him. But that is something that Payton Talbott could pull out of his back pocket, maybe try and get a takedown, mix in the grappling. I think Payton Talbott's style just works really well against Raoni, especially when you consider Raoni is old, 37. His gas tank isn't the best. We saw that in the Christian Quinones fight. But also, I think his chin's open, and he bites on feints hard as shit. I get that getting knocked out by Umar doesn't seem that bad, but he got knocked out cold by Umar Nurmagomedov. And how many people has Umar ever done that to? I mean, I'll check for you. How many people has Umar Nurmagomedov? He has 2 KO wins, and the other one is in the second round, and I guarantee you it was like a ground and pound thing. I can't even find it. So I can't actually... Oh, it was his 3rd fight ever. Yeah, I don't really like that, in my personal opinion. I think Payton Talbott's going to box him up. He has great boxing. He sets up his straight punches very well. He is kind of a threatening presence, kind of has a lot of aura in the cage. He walks people down. His hands are a bit low, but he doesn't move his head a lot. But Payton's got a chin on him. Raoni's old. I think it's just the obvious pick. I think he's going to knock him out in the first or second round. We move to the start of the main card. Kevin Holland versus Rener de Ridder. I'll go with Rener de Ridder, but it is tricky because Kevin Holland does have an extreme chance on the feet to KO Rener. But I think Kevin Holland just doesn't care enough anymore to win. You know what I mean? I don't think Kevin Holland cares about winning fights that much anymore. I don't like him at middleweight either. It's not a weight class I want to see him fight at because I believe he is undersized and criminally undersized against a guy like Rener de Ridder, who has a very wide frame, very bulky build, weird style of fighting as well, very awkward, more awkward than anyone I think Kevin Holland's ever fought. Well, no, he fought Michael Venom Page, but second to Michael Venom Page, which no one even comes close to Michael. There's nobody else like Michael Venom Page. But Rener de Ridder, the only guy that fights like Rener de Ridder is almost like a DDP early version. Rener de Ridder, very awkward striking, very open on the feet, kind of slow. That is where Kevin Holland will be able to have his moment, and he definitely can. Kevin Holland bruised his ribs in October, 3 months ago. I don't like that. Not a huge fan of that, for me, in my opinion. I think if Rener de Ridder gets it to the ground, he can easily sub Kevin Holland. The way he was able to move against Gerald Mearshart was actually very well. Kevin Holland can scramble pretty well, but I think Rener de Ridder is actually decent at controlling people and very big as well. Roman Dolidze isn't as tall, but he's kind of strong, to be fair. But I think Rener de Ridder is a bit more technical than a Roman Dolidze on the ground. Even though Roman Dolidze does have killer jiu-jitsu, Rener de Ridder is a bit better than he is, of course. I think Rener de Ridder either subs Kevin with a rear naked choke in the first or second round. I think he can get a body triangle on him. Maybe the fight finishes from that due to the rib injury a couple months prior. Or he faked it, I guess. But, Kevin Holland, he's way too active. I don't think he's not hyper-focused anymore. He can definitely knock out Rener, but I don't think he does. I think Rener de Ridder subs him in the first or second round. The striking exchanges early will be very interesting because that is where Kevin Holland, like I've said, will have his chance. Maybe Renner to Ritter just gets fraud checked immediately, but who knows. We move to Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. I'll go with Jailton Almeida by first round submission. Sergey is better on the feet. I will say that point blank. Sergey Spivak is better on the feet, quicker on the feet, with his hands at least. And I think that can cause definitely some problems for Jailton if he isn't able to take him down. The problem is I think he'll be able to take him down. I think Jailton will be able to take down Sergey Spivak. Not at will, I'll say. Sergey Spivak, it depends on what weight he weighs in at. If Sergey Spivak weighs in like he did against Tybura, then it'll be an easier fight for Jailton Almeida because he'll actually be less mass, and Jailton will be able to pick him up easier, be able to move him around easier. If he's heavier, then Jailton will have to work a bit more and actually might not be able to take him down as easy. Sergey Spivak's improved heavily, but I think Jailton Almeida, he is just kind of a fat guy killer. And Sergey isn't fat, to be fair. For the guys in the top 10, there are some absolute blobs. Sergey Spivak isn't like a crazy blob or anything. He actually kind of used to be really fat, and then he started losing. Actually, no, he used to be really, really small for heavyweight. Started to build into that frame, start to actually look decent, and then he lost a bunch of weight for the Tybura rematch. But anyways, like I said, Jailton, I think he measures range really well. And that's something. And I think if Jailton Almeida was able to do what he did to Curtis Blades in the first round, who is a bigger, better wrestler than Sergey Spivak, I think he'll be able to do it to Sergey as well, sadly. I want Sergey to win because Sergey's like a underrated dude. I think he's like chill. And Jailton Almeida is on steroids. But I think Jailton will win, in my humble opinion. I think he does get to the ground with Sergey, dominate him, get to bad positions, gets top mount, rains down ground and pound. Sergey kind of gasses out after the first round, most likely. Then he loses. I don't know. But Jailton wins anyway. We move to the featured fight, Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. I'll go with Jamal Hill, I guess. There's literally no professional way to break down this fight. It's literally who you think, whose autism do you think is going to be more effective? Both of these guys have some of the most glaring holes I've ever seen in top 5 of MMA male divisions I've ever seen. Yuri Prochazka has some of the worst striking defense ever, and Jamal Hill has literally the most abysmal footwork I've seen in my fucking life. He literally plods around everywhere. But I think Yuri Prochazka has a chin problem, and I think people are going to start to catch on by this fight. Yuri Prochazka has been hurt in almost every fight in the UFC besides the Rakic one, which is honestly hilarious because he was the person landing the cleanest on Yuri. I don't know, man. It literally is just who you think will catch who with the flushest shot first. Who will land a really flush shot first, I guess, is really the gamble you're taking in predicting this fight. I think Jamal Hill can set up head kicks pretty well. That's something that Yuri Prochazka has had problems with in his career, is head kicks. And also just keeping his hands low is something. Trying to headbutt shots. Jamal Hill hits pretty hard, so does Yuri, and Jamal Hill can definitely get knocked out. Again, there's really no, concrete way. There's no, the outside foot battle. There's no, concrete breakdown for this fight. It's, like I said, you just think who's going to land the biggest shot first. I think Jamal Hill can circle pretty well. Not circle pretty well. I think he can cut off the cage pretty well against Yuri Prochazka. And Yuri, his hands are so... I know he said in the lead-up to this fight that he worked on keeping his hands up. I fucking doubt it, man. I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt that Yuri. God, fuck. This fight's killing me. I gotta wrap this up. I think Jamal Hill can almost also maybe implement some clinch techniques in grappling, possibly. Try and cut off the cage. Yuri Prochazka has pretty, all-right grappling. I guess Jamal Hill has, like, all-right grappling, but Jamal did better in the grappling against Glover. So I think that could be an upside for Jamal Hill. But yeah, I think Jamal Hill is going to catch Yuri Prochazka, sadly. I don't want him to win, but, like, I really want Yuri to win, and I won't even be mad if I get my pick wrong because I want him to win so bad. Please don't win Jamal Hill. But I think Jamal Hill will win, sadly. We move to the co-main event. Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. I'll go with Umar. If you watched my video, my hot takes going into the year, my hot take was that I think Umar versus Merab will be a bit less competitive than people think, is what I said. I think Umar Nurmagomedov is going to outclass Merab Dvalishvili pretty easily, in my opinion. A lot of what Merab does well is outpacing people, smudging them against the fence, getting takedowns, drowning them, and I just find it incredibly hard to believe that he will be able to do that against Umar Nurmagomedov, especially with a leg injury, which is where he drives a lot of power from to get these takedowns. If you guys haven't seen the injury, it's in the fucking photos. He literally got it stitched up like a month ago. He has 2 huge lacerations on his legs. And I think Umar's better, dude. I think he's a little better. He throws leg kicks every now and then, but I just really think the striking of Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be on full throttle in this fight. Merab Dvalishvili's striking isn't abysmal. Like, it works because of the takedown threat and because he's awkward. Like I said earlier in the video, I was talking about, was I talking about Ailín Pérez? Is that what I was talking about? Were they, like, they're way out or way in? Yeah, they're either way out or he's either way out or way in. And that's kind of like a tricky thing to deal with Merab Dvalishvili. But, like, I think Umar's going to chew him up. I think he's going to land body teep kicks. I think that his 1s and 2s are going to be pretty well. He was outlanding Corey Sandhagen pretty often. And Merab's 34. You know, time will catch up to him. You know, you fight a young buck enough, you fight a 29-year-old who actually has grappling prowess, unlike Sugar Sean O'Malley. We'll see what happens. And Umar's striking is decent. Like, it actually, like, even though the Corey Sandhagen fight was, like, kind of mid, he had, like, a decent performance on the feet. He was actually outlanding Corey Sandhagen. Maybe that's because Corey Sandhagen legit threw nothing. But that doesn't matter. He was still outstriking him and outpacing him, and he actually outworked Corey Sandhagen in that fight. And Merab Dvalishvili, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think he's going to have a bad weight cut, with the injury included as well. I think Umar Nurmagomedov, he throws those teep kicks to the body, and that's something about Merab, is that he is weak to the body. And Umar has a decent left hook. People were bringing up the Marlon Moraes, Henry Cejudo left hook against Merab when Sean O'Malley was fighting him. When was the last time Sean knocked anybody out with a fucking left hook? I'll tell you, Umar's knocked out somebody with a left hook. It's one of his 2 knockouts on his resume, but he has it, at least. And Merab does get dangerously close. I think Umar makes people bite with the knees as well. He throws knees up the middle pretty well. He times them. And he's got good takedown defense. Like, Merab, if Merab is able to wash out Umar Nurmagomedov, he is the best bantamweight of all time. Argue with a fucking wall. Alright? I will say that. I think Umar beats him, though. I do. But if Merab somehow pulls it off, then he is the best, especially when he's like at what, plus 200? Is he a plus 300? Plus 230. Same thing. But also I think Umar mixes it up a little bit better. I think his striking is better than Merab, and I think that maybe while Merab's, his grappling isn't better, though. He literally only has cardio. Why am I fucking back? Umar also has 100% takedown defense against nobodies, but at least he does have 100% takedown defense as of now. And what's Merab's takedown ratio? Like 10, 37? That's bullshit. I don't believe that for a second, dude. But yeah, I just truly don't believe that Merab Dvalishvili's style will work against Umar Nurmagomedov. Just because, like, even the Sean O'Malley performance wasn't as dominant as I'd like it to be. Like, Sean won 2 rounds. That's more than I expected. I thought if Sean was going to win, he would knock him out in the first or second round. He won 2 rounds in a decision. If it went to decision, I thought Merab was going to 50-40 for him. But he didn't. He lost the 5th. He lost the 5th round against Sean O'Malley, guys. Let's not forget that. Umar can tag him to the body. He can outbox him. The grappling will be interesting to see for sure. But I think Umar's grappling, I mean, he's training with Khabib, Islam, and Bilal Muhammad and a bunch of other fucking cool guys. I imagine his takedown defense is fucking incredible. All right. But, yeah, I think Umar wins it. Sorry, Merab. He had a very untimely championship reign for this to be his first title defense, especially with the injury, but it is what it is. We move to the new main event, Islam Makhachev versus Renato Moicano. Usually I break down main events for a long time. I'm not going to beat around the bush with you guys. I'm picking Islam Makhachev by first or second round TKO. Renato Moicano was training for a 3-round fight against Beneil Dariush. He's now in a 5-round main event against Islam Makhachev. It's a very different stylistic matchup, and also Islam is just better than Beneil Dariush. Renato, his main thing is his grappling. His wrestling threat has been the biggest part of his game for a while now, and he's not going to be able to use that effectively against Islam. Why do I think that? Charles wasn't able to do that, and Charles Oliveira is probably the second best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy to ever enter the UFC, ever, all right? And he couldn't do shit against Islam Makhachev. Renato Moicano, he's old. He's older than Arman, so it's going to be even easier there. Renato, he's riddled with injuries. Let's not forget, guys, that his fucking shoulder was super fucked up when he fought Benoit Saint-Denis. I just don't see it. You know, he has a 44% takedown accuracy. What's Islam's takedown defense? What are we looking at here? 91. No fucking way Renato Moicano's able to beat Islam Makhachev. It's a Cinderella story if he does, but his boxing isn't good enough. Renato has underrated boxing. But I'm gonna give you guys some insider info. I was gonna pick Beneil Dariush to beat Renato Moicano on Saturday, and I still think he would. Renato Moicano, he's a flash in the pan kind of fighter right now. He's on a huge win streak, finishing these guys. Islam Makhachev isn't Jalen Turner. He's not Benoit Saint-Denis. He's not fucking Brad Riddell. He's not Drew Dober. He's Islam Makhachev. He's a better striker than all those guys. He's a better grappler than all those guys. He's a better fighter. He has more dog in him than most of those guys, too. So, Renato isn't a dog enough. I've seen RDA beat the shit out of this dude for 5 rounds. If he somehow beats Islam, it'll be one of the biggest upsets of the sport I've ever seen in my life. Islam Makhachev by whatever he wants. Lock it in. I'm UFC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC 311. Makhachev versus Moicano on January 18th, 2025. My confident picks reside with Clayton, Carpenter, Zachary, Reese, and Umar Nurmagomedov. My pre-card rating is a 7 out of 10. When I first recorded this video, it was a 9. To be honest, the main event it's not what I would want, honestly. I get why they gave it to Renato when he weighed in championship weight. Beneil did not. But it kind of sucks that Beneil gets just kind of fucking pulled off the card. And Arman pulled out as short notice as possible when, we could have, if he did it maybe a week before. I don't know when he injured his back. It kind of pisses me off, honestly. But it's still a very good card. LA has a fucking great card coming to it. The main card is, decent now. Jailton got booted up. So it's all right, I guess. We'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens, guys. But, yeah, I'll see you guys after the fights. Peace.